Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And happy Pride Month. So, as I mentioned before, we're ringing in Pride Month a day early this year. To be honest, it was kind of a scheduling thing, but I'm actually really happy about it. You know, some Jewish months, they have an extra day, and we can just say that we get an extra day of Pride Month this year. And I think we could use it, right? Because this has been a really hard year for the LGBTQ plus community, right? We've seen an overwhelming number of attacks on LGBTQ rights, especially trans rights, on the state level and especially on the federal level from the new administration. The ACLU, which tracks anti-LGBTQ legislation, is currently tracking 588 such bills across the US. And all of this is being fueled by hateful, dangerous, and dehumanizing rhetoric coming from so many directions, but even at the highest offices of our government. It's been a really hard, really scary year. And yet, right now, this month, Pride, it's a time to recognize and celebrate resilience. And it always has been. Our queer ancestors have been here before. Our Jewish ancestors have been here before. We know how to draw on our spiritual and communal resources to resist hate, to survive, and ultimately even to thrive in spite of it all. My teacher, B'nai Lappi, founder of Svara, a radical queer yeshiva, talks about how she believes that the Talmud is a guidebook for liberation and radical innovation. Because she saw how the rabbis of the Talmud used Torah and Talmudic reasoning to find spiritual liberation for themselves, even as they face challenges like the destruction of the temple, oppression under the Roman Empire, and life in exile. The Torah itself is also a guide for resistance and survival, because it tells us how an oppressed people made it through slavery in Egypt, wandered 40 years in the wilderness, and eventually managed to build a holy space for themselves to worship their own God and lead holy lives. At first in the wilderness, and later in the promised land. And right now, in our reading of the Torah, as we just experienced, we're in Parashat Bamidbar, in the wilderness. We're deep in that wandering in the wilderness, a time which was full of insecurity. Insecurity about surviving the journey, about whether we would ever reach that promised land. The very first words of the Parsha are instructions from God to Moshe to take a census of the people in anticipation of the battles that they may face with other nations. The Hebrew phrase for the census is Se'u et rosh kol adat Yisrael. Literally, lift the heads of all the community members of Israel. And the Me'orei Naim, one of our great Hasidic teachers, says that to lift the heads means to lift their heads with pride and dignity. Pride and dignity because of who their ancestors are. That in that time of uncertainty and insecurity, they can think of their ancestors and feel proud to follow in their footsteps. And I want to look today at a particular story about our ancestors, about how they made it through Egypt to the moment that we find ourselves in this Parsha. In our Parsha, when God speaks to Moshe, it specifies that it's in the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting, which is a component of the Mishkan. In addition to the census of the whole people, God also asks for a specific census of the Levites, because the Levites, including the priests, are going to be responsible for transporting the Mishkan and all the holy objects inside. And one question that always comes up when we think about the Mishkan, and it might have arisen for you as you were reading the Parsha today, is where did they get all of these materials? Okay, precious gems. Gold and silver, spices and oils, dolphin skins, right? And as interesting as the dolphin skins are, and we definitely should talk about that another time, I actually think that one of the most powerful stories around the materials of the Mishkan is about the wood. Much of the structure around the Mishkan is made of panels of fine cedar wood. The cedars are associated with northern Israel and Lebanon. You often hear the phrase Arzei Halavanon, cedars of Lebanon. They grow very tall and upright, which is ideal for building, right? So how did the Israelites access them when they were wandering in the wilderness of Sinai? This is the question that Midrash Tanchuma asks. Quote, "Where did the trees come from? Our ancestor Jacob planted them. When his children went down to Egypt, he said to them, 'My children, it has been decreed that you will be redeemed from here. Then the Holy One will command you to build a tabernacle. Plant cedars now, so that when the Holy One asks you for a tabernacle, the cedars will be ready.' So Jacob's children planted cedars." So our ancestor Jacob prophetically knew that the cedars would be needed, so he brought saplings with him from the land of Israel to Egypt and planted the trees along with his children. Then you have to fill in the gaps that all throughout those years of slavery, hundreds of years, the Israelites tended these cedar trees. And when it was time to finally leave Egypt, they cut them down and they carried them with them through the Red Sea. Just imagine that image, that throughout 200 years, or some say 430 years of oppression and slavery, the Israelites had this source of hope. They knew that they would one day be redeemed and that they would be able to build a sacred space of their own. All throughout those generations of slavery in Egypt, they prepared themselves for a redeemed future. And the cedar, it's not just any plant. The cedar, which is tall and strong, which can't easily be swayed or felled by the wind, is considered in rabbinic literature to be a symbol of pride. When a person is compared to a cedar, it means they are unyielding to pressure, unwilling to change who they are in response to outside forces. The Israelites, who day after day were demeaned and dehumanized as Pharaoh's slaves, they didn't only tend the cedars as a symbol of hope, but as a practice of maintaining their pride. The Midrash teaches that in times of oppression and dehumanization, just as we are experiencing now against the queer community, we must insist on being proud of who we are. That pride will carry us through difficult times, and eventually we will build a world where pride and dignity are core to the structure of society, just as these cedars form the very structure of the Mishkan. The psalm for Shabbat, which we sang earlier, which we sing on Friday nights as well, teaches, "The righteous will flourish like a date palm, they will thrive like a cedar in Lebanon." In our own lifetimes, we've experienced the flourishing and thriving of queer life and culture in ways that are beautiful and deep and unprecedented in Western society. And this is because of the determination and the hard work and incredible creativity of LGBTQ people and communities. And also because of people's willingness to open their minds, unlearn old prejudices, and become allies alongside their LGBTQ loved ones. The work isn't linear, and right now we're seeing the backlash. But we know that the flourishing and thriving is possible because we're already well on our way. Now, the Haftarah for Parashat Bamidbar also speaks of this movement from degradation to dignity. The Israelites have been degraded and distanced from God, but Hosea promises that they're going to be welcomed back and affirmed. V'haya bimkom asher ye'amar lehem lo ami atem, ye'amar lehem b'nei el chai. He says, instead of being told, "You are not my people," they shall be called children of the living God. How many times have we heard this, "You are not my people," this kind of degrading language, using religion to tear down and delegitimize queer people? But Hosea says, instead of being told, "You are not my people," you will be called children of the living God. Hosea continues, "Imru le'acheichem ami u'le'achotechem ruchama." Call your brothers, your siblings, my people, and your sisters lovingly accepted. Hosea's vision is that instead of excluding and tearing people down, we will see all people as children of God. Right? This is a reality that we can already begin to build with our own loving acceptance, our own sense of pride and dignity. And by getting to work to tend that pride and with it to build a society where queer and trans people are not only safe from harm, but unconditionally, lovingly accepted and celebrated. Shabbat Shalom. Before we continue with the service, I want to highlight and thank our Kiruv LGBTQ plus Inclusion Committee and highlight the work that they're doing to make this vision that we just talked about a reality. The Kiruv LGBTQ plus Inclusion Committee works to create an environment where all LGBTQIA plus people feel supported, safe, and valued. We are committed to fostering values of equality, respect, acceptance, and belonging for all people within our synagogue and the broader community. We do this through inclusive programming, culturally minded practices, and advocacy. And so right now, the Kiruv Committee is recommending a few ways that you can get involved in supporting the LGBTQ community during this Pride Month and beyond. So the first thing is responding to the fact that right now, many families who can afford to are moving to states where they can access healthcare for their transgender children from states where they can't access healthcare. We know that this healthcare can be life-saving. And so Keshet and the Hebrew Free Loan Society have started a loan program for families who are looking to move, and people can donate to Keshet, and you can earmark that you want to donate specifically for this program. The second way to get involved is a postcarding campaign in support of the Location Shield Act led by JALSA. So the Location Shield Act would prohibit corporations from selling our personal location data, which puts people at risk for their medical information being shared and medical information for LGBTQ people. This also connects to reproductive rights and privacy around that. So those are postcards that would go to our state legislators. And this is a new campaign, so we don't have the postcards yet, but please keep an eye out. And then finally, in the lobby, there's an amazing resource table. There's so many incredible resources, and I invite you to check all of them out. One of them is specifically a list of organizations working for LGBTQ equality and safety, that you can learn more about those organizations and donate or get involved with them. I hope you'll check out all the other wonderful resources, and happy Pride Month.